for the trip again: notebook, voice recorder, my old worn but beloved camera, a change of clothes, and a book. In the kitchen, my wife is nervously clattering the dishes as she prepares snacks for me to take along. And from there comes not only the smell of sandwiches but also a hint of annoyance. "You just got back last week. Why again?" she shouts from the kitchen, annoyed. Yes, my job involves constant trips to the edge of the world, just to try to draw the authorities' attention to these abandoned villages where people still live. My articles have never been sensational and have never appeared on the front pages of newspapers. But once, after publishing one of them, a village that hadn't seen electricity for decades finally got power. Since then, I haven't been able to stop. The grateful faces of those people are still vivid in my mind. "What happened in that village that you had to go again?" she asked with her trophy, entering the room. "People there have no proper roads. Supplies come only once a month. The ambulance can't reach them, and now with frequent blizzards, part of the village is without electricity and gas, and there are children living there. If we don't draw attention, this will continue for decades." "Imagine how many lives could be lost," I said. "And no one else can go? We have children too, Sean. They want to see their father, and all you think about is work," she said in despair. "I promise, as soon as I return, we will go on vacation. 2 weeks, not a single word about work," I said, hugging her. "What am I supposed to tell the kids when they wake up?" "Tell them I love them very much, and that I'll bring them a little gift." "When will you finally start thinking about us first?" she asked, offended. "You knew who you were marrying," I said, smiling. "Yes, I knew, but back then I believed that one day you'd stop," she replied quietly. "I love you all," kissed the kids. "Goodbye," I said, and left the apartment. "And we," she murmured at last, closing the door. I got into the car. The engine rumbled heavily, just like the weight on my soul. The conversation with my wife had been hard, so it was right. I do travel for work too often. But when I see those elderly people living without electricity, or children without proper medical care or food supplies, I can't stand aside. It seemed to me that if I at least wrote about them, someone in authority would read it, and finally something would change. I glanced at our house one more time. I looked through the window where the light was still on. I sighed deeply and pressed the gas pedal. "Oh, I'll get this done quickly and be home," I muttered to myself. But once I left the city limits, I realized the road would be long. Everything around was mercilessly swept by snow. Almost nothing was visible on the horizon, so I had to drive slowly. I turned the headlights to full, but they helped little. The snow fell so thickly that only a small patch of the road was visible. The car swayed slightly on the turns. I turned on the radio to relax a bit. But after a few kilometers, the signal completely disappeared, and gradually the radio stopped working too. At first, only static and crackling came from the speakers, with fragments of a song barely recognizable, and then just the noise of the airwaves until the radio went silent. Luckily, I found a flash drive with music in the glove compartment. On the roadside, I noticed a slightly snow-covered sign indicating the village Balkans 5 camp. The sun slowly rose above the horizon, and its first rays cut through the sky, touching the snow-covered road. I could already make out the silhouettes of partially ruined houses standing along the roadside, although calling it a road was an exaggeration, more like the remnants of it, with potholes and pieces of asphalt that had once been there. The car bounced slowly over the uneven surface, and I tried to keep control so I wouldn't skid into the ditch. I drove through the village, observing the houses. Some were completely abandoned, windows and doors boarded up, roofs collapsed under the weight of the snow. Fences leaning, and some houses didn't even have a fence at all. But most of them, although old, were still maintained. Whitewashed walls and fences, curtains on the windows, smoke rising from chimneys, so people still lived here. In one of the yards on the edge of the village, I noticed an old dog tied to a chain and a sled covered in snow, leaning against a tree. For some reason, this house drew my attention the most. A sled? That means there are kids here. Great, I muttered to myself. Yes, children attract the most attention and sympathy. They were what I could focus on, so I decided to head for this house. I turned off the car and got out. The air outside was freezing, biting at my nose and almost burning my face. Approaching the fence, I noticed two children, about 5 and 8 years old. Good day, I called out as I approached the fence. Good day. Who are you? Replied the older child. I'm a journalist, Sean. And what's your name? I asked. I'm Corey, and this is my little sister, Terry. Is there an adult at home? I inquired. Yes, there's Grandpa. Could you please call him? Grandpa, a journalist named Sean is here. He's calling you, she shouted across the yard and ran toward the house. A few minutes later, an elderly but very dignified-looking man appeared from behind the house. He walked steadily but slowly toward me. Greetings, what brings you to our village? He asked with curiosity. I'm Sean, a journalist from the city. I came to bring an article about your village to draw the authorities' attention to your situation, I explained, extending my hand. I'm Otto Atkins, a native of this village. Pleased to meet you, he said, shaking my hand in return. Very nice to meet you. Please, come in. You must be tired from the journey, he said, opening the gate for me. Honestly, very. The road was difficult, and the night blizzard made driving hard. We'll get you some hot tea right away. I'd really appreciate that, I replied. Come inside, he said, letting me into the house. We entered the house. I immediately noticed that it was clean, though it was clear that people lived modestly. The air was warm and smelled of freshly baked bread. The rooms had white walls adorned with icons, and striped rugs lay on the floor. By the window stood a table covered with a linen tablecloth. The last time I saw one like this was at my grandmother's house in the village when I was a child. Lace curtains hung on the windows, letting in the winter sunlight. I walked slowly through the room. The wooden floor creaked lightly under my feet. In the corner stood a stove, with a bundle of firewood nearby. The house seemed old, yet very tidy. I could feel care and love living here. Every detail reminded me that the warmth of human hands and family comfort still existed here, a feeling that is hard to find in a big city. Otto suggested I sit at the table. I took a wooden chair near the window and leaned against the wall. I felt a little confused, as I hadn't expected such hospitality. Usually, I conducted my reporting in the yard or by my car. In this village, everything felt different. Otto placed 2 ceramic cups of fragrant linen tea on the table. Steam rose and filled the room with its aroma. A few minutes later, he brought out freshly baked, hot, aromatic homemade bread straight from the oven. Help yourselves, we offer what we have, he said, sitting down in a chair beside me. Thank you very much, I replied. We dry the tea ourselves for the winter. Here's the bread, fresh from the oven. I'll also bring some jam. Which kind do you like? He asked, rising abruptly from the chair. No, thank you. This is more than enough, I said gratefully. Then it will be raspberry, he said, leaving the room. I took a sip of the tea. I hadn't felt this good in a long time. In this home, time seemed to stop. The last time I felt this way was in childhood, when my grandmother was still alive. A few minutes later, Otto returned with a small jar of jam and 2 spoons. Here you go, he said, handing me a spoon. Thank you. I feel really awkward. I have nothing to offer you in return. You don't need to offer anything. I do this from the heart. I took a small piece of bread. The crust was still warm, and the inside was soft and fluffy, steaming gently. I spread some raspberry jam on it and immediately tasted it. The flavor was unreal, I would even say divine. Words could not describe it. Help yourselves, he said with a smile. At that moment, when a complete stranger treated me with such genuine kindness and generosity, my heart felt an even stronger desire to help his village not just professionally, but personally as well. I saw the children in the yard. Are they your grandchildren? Yes, they are my son's children. We all live together, my wife, my son, his wife, and their children. And where are they now? My son works for people in the winter fixing things or chopping firewood. That's how he earns. And the women are busy with the livestock right now. Is it hard to live like this? I asked with sadness. If only we had electricity and good roads, it would be easier. Our village used to thrive. But now he treaded off and lowered his head with sorrow. I will do my best to help, I promise. Thank you, he said, looking at me and smiling. Yet in his eyes, I saw a deep trace of doubt, as if he had completely lost faith that anything could change. I leaned slightly closer and looked him straight in the eyes. Mr. Otto, seriously? I'm a journalist. I will draw attention to your village's troubles. We will breathe new life into your village, I said with a smile. Oh, my son, nobody cares about a village of a few hundred people. No one is interested, he replied. Could you help me interview some of the local residents? The more stories we gather, the better. What exactly are you interested in? We need stories from elderly people and families with children. That's the best way to draw attention. Let's go to my neighbor. She's an elderly woman, lives alone, old and sick. Her children have long been abroad, and sometimes we help her. Sometimes the neighbors help as well. Let's go! We stepped outside. By now, the blizzard had picked up. The wind lifted the snow into the air, swirling it around. The air was freezing, sharp, and made my eyes water. I pulled my jacket tighter, shrugged my shoulders, and shoved my hands into my pockets. I hope it calms down by evening, I muttered under my breath, watching the storm rage. We arrived at Mrs. Joanna's yard. The fence was almost collapsed, and a thin elderly dog lay silently by the doorstep, not even lifting its head. The house walls were cracked, and it seemed like it could fall apart at any moment. We entered her house. It was warm, though not as cozy as Otto was. The old woman sat by the stove, her back against the chair, wrapped in an Angora scarf to keep warm. Otto, who do you have with you? She asked in a quiet voice. This is a reporter from the city. He wants to help our village. How will he help? She sighed. I'll write a report about your village. If it gains attention, the authorities may help. At least that's what I hope, I explained. Oh, who needs us? If only we could get through this winter, she said, despondent. Well, now that I'm here, let's at least try. And why should you care about our troubles? She asked, curious. I like helping people. It's my job, I said with a smile, glancing at Otto, who stood nearby. If that's so, ask whatever you need from me. I switched on the voice recorder and sat down next to her. The room fell into a deep silence. Only the stove crackled softly. Her wrinkled hands rested on her knees. Her brow was furrowed, and there was distrust in her eyes about what was happening. Tell me, Mrs. Joanna, how long have you lived in this village? Oh, for as long as I can remember. I'm 85 years old, dear, she replied. So you've spent your whole life here? Tell me how things have changed. Our village used to thrive. Otto will not let me lie, though he's younger than me. He remembers that period too, she said, looking at Otto. When did things start to change? The factories that were here began to close, some forever. Others moved closer to the city. Young people left because jobs became scarce. Even the only store closed. Why did it close? I asked. They stopped repairing the roads, they said. There's no budget allocation. At first we tried to fix things ourselves, and then we simply couldn't keep up, he said, interrupting Joanna. So the store owners couldn't deliver groceries anymore. How do you buy food? I asked, shocked. If someone young goes to the neighboring village or into town, regardless, we help each other out, and a supply truck comes once a month. And Otto brings things to me. I can't walk. That's how we manage. Usually, when I record interviews, I try to keep a distance so I don't take people's words too close to heart, but not today. I felt this report would be different. I suddenly realized what I'd always been hunting for, some sensational angle. I probed for what would make a story sell, what would make people listen. But here it was different. In Balkans, people were incredibly kind. Their mutual support was striking. They had united simply to survive. We talked for a long time. The hours dissolved between the stove's crackle and Otto and Joanna's memories of the village, of the people who once filled these streets with laughter and work, of the spring fairs the village used to hold. All of that remained only in the memories of these elderly people. Several times I glanced toward the window outside. It had grown darker and darker. At last I dared to interrupt their recollections because I needed to return to the city. The road was long, especially in such weather. I left the house and headed for the car. Otto followed me. The blizzard was so strong that it felt like I was about to be blown away by the wind. I stood by Mr. Otto's fence. A sense of unease crept into my mind. What should I do? How would I get back to the city? You'd better stay the night with us. It's dangerous to travel in this weather. Besides, we don't know what condition the roads are in. What if you get stuck? My family is waiting for me at home. I can't let them down. If you get stuck or slide off the road, it will be worse. Maybe you're right, but I hope I'm not causing you any trouble. I wouldn't suggest it if it were a burden for us. Thank you. Come inside. It's freezing out here. Opening the door to the house, a wave of warm air rushed over me, carrying the scent of delicious food. Good evening, I greeted loudly. Meet John. This is my wife, Mrs. Jenny. It's a pleasure. Thank you for agreeing to host me. There's no need to thank us. Anyone would do the same. And this is my daughter-in-law, Kate. It's very nice to meet you. Please sit at the table, she said politely, pulling out a chair for me. Thank you, I murmured softly and sat down. The table was filled with the warm, loving atmosphere, the laughter of children, and the joy of having food before us. Jenny, Otto's wife, was a modestly built woman with a kind face and hard-working hands. Her eyes were tired, but a smile rarely left her face. Kate, the young daughter-in-law, had a long blonde braid and looked happy despite the harsh conditions of village life. The children were lively, their cheeks rosy from the cold and eyes sparkling with curiosity. Kate, as a mother of young children, may I ask you a few questions for my article? Of course, go ahead. Just a moment, I said as I pulled the recorder from my pocket. Is it difficult to raise children in the village? I asked after starting the recorder. We're not used to complaining, but yes, it can be challenging. In winter, the roads are so blocked by snow that getting the children to school isn't always possible. And if a doctor is needed, that's even worse. Ambulances can't get here because of the poor roads. And why did you stay here instead of moving to the city? I asked carefully. Where will we go? My elderly parents live just a street away, along with my sister's family, and my husband's parents are here too. How could we leave them? We love our village. It's quiet and peaceful, though it's a bit difficult, especially since the electricity went out, she sighed. I spoke with the Atchins family for a long time about the children, the village, and my own family. The stove crackled softly in the background. It felt as if we were family, simply meeting after a long time apart. Time passed quickly. I didn't even notice that it was nearly midnight. Talking with this family, I felt neither the fatigue from the long journey nor any fear, nothing, only calm in my heart. The children had long been asleep in their beds, and the women had gone to rest, leaving only Otto and me awake. I'll brew some mint tea. It will calm you and help you sleep. I looked out the window. The blizzard had already subsided in the yard, leaving no trace behind, and large snowflakes were slowly falling from the sky. The only light on the street came from the starry sky and the moon. I took my tea and quietly stepped out into the yard. The air was cool but still. On the other side of the house stood an old wooden bench. I brushed the snow off it with my sleeve and sat down, placing my cup of tea beside me. From this bench, an incredible view of this long-lost village opened up for me. Before my eyes was a snow-covered hill illuminated by the moon. Here and there stood trees and bushes dusted with snow. The beauty was incredible. Strangely, in the silence, looking into the distance, I felt peace, the same peace I had long missed in the city. There, among endless duties, calls, and noise, I had long forgotten what it was like to simply sit, remain silent, and admire the scenery. Following me, Mr. Otto came out with his cup of tea. Do you mind if I join you? He asked. Of course not. How do you like it here? I haven't felt this good in a long time. That makes me happy, he smiled. Thank you for helping me. Do you think our village has any chance? I believe it has a huge chance we will succeed. I'm not thinking about myself anymore. I worry about the children. I just want them to live better, he sighed. We sat and talked, admiring the beauty of the snow-covered village. Suddenly, I noticed a house lighting up on the hill. Who lives there so far away? Where? He asked in surprise, taking a sip of tea. There, on the hill, I said, pointing in that direction. Oh, you mean that one, he sighed. Why do you sigh so heavily? How can I explain it, he said slowly. Otto paused for a long moment as if trying to find the right words to explain something that not everyone could understand. He frowned and slowly ran his hand over his gray beard. He looked slightly nervous and thoughtful. It made me uneasy. "Tell me straight, Otto."
"Straight," he murmured thoughtfully.
"That house doesn't exist." "What do you mean?" "I'm looking right at it. In fact, if you look closely, you can even see someone walking there." "No, Sean, I was just a child when that house already didn't exist," he whispered. "All right, then what are we seeing now?" I asked thoughtfully. "My parents told me the story of this house. It lights up every night at midnight. If you see it then, it's almost 12 p.m. I checked my watch, it really was 11:55 p.m. I raised the camera hanging around my neck and aimed the lens at the house on the hill. The silhouette of the house was clearly visible, and I could see the windows flickering, as if someone were walking inside with a lantern. After taking a few shots, I'd opened the photos to get a closer look at the house. Suddenly, a chill ran down my spine. The house had completely disappeared, leaving only a slightly illuminated hill, not a single sign of a house.
"Let's go inside. It's late already. We have to get up early tomorrow."
"You're right, I need a rest." We returned to the house. A prepared bed by the stove was waiting for me, ranged by Otto's wife. I lay down in the bed, wrapped myself in a warm blanket. The pillow so soft it felt as if I was sinking into it. The thoughts in my head gradually began to fade, my eyelids growing heavier and slowly lowering, and I fell asleep. Sound of rooster crowing.
I woke up to the prolonged crowing of the roosters, each one taking its turn, as if competing with each other. Their voices echoed throughout the room.
Outside, it was still semi-dark, as it was inside the house, but the village had already come to life. I got out of bed, dressed, and stepped into the yard. The hosts were already busy working, tending to the yard and the livestock. The roads were heavily covered with snow, which meant I would be stuck here at least until the evening. "Oh, Sean, you're already awake so early. Wasn't the cold intimidating?" "No, not at all," I muttered. "Breakfast is on the table. Eat, then come join us outside." "Thank you," I said and returned to the house. On the table, fresh milk, fried potatoes, and salted cucumbers were waiting for me. True country food.
I ate quickly and went out into the yard to Mr. Otto. Otto was shoveling snow in the backyard of the house. Unhurried and focused, his movements were slow, like a ritual he performed every day.
I slowly approached, sliding my hands into my jacket pockets as they had begun to get a little cold. I stopped next to him. "Do you want some help, Otto?" I asked. "No, thank you. What would I do all day then? I'll go slowly, and the day will pass," he said with a smile. "And you do this every day from early morning?"
"Of course, here. If you don't start in the morning, you won't finish by evening," he said, continuing to shovel snow at a slow pace.
I cast a glance at the snowy hill where the house had been. There was truly nothing there. It all seemed strange to me. I don't believe in the mystical. "Since you don't need help, I'll take a walk up to the hill." "Better not, Sean. There's a lot of snow." "It'll be fine. I'll be careful," I replied. "There's a big wooden stick by the gate. Take it with you. It'll be safer." "I'll take it, thank you." The climb up the hill was not easy. Otto was right, the snow was indeed up to my knees, my legs sinking with every step. Good thing I took his stick. Although, a big plus of coming up to this hill was that I managed to take a lot of beautiful shots along the way. Houses, Nature, domestic animals, the village came alive through my camera lens. I was already freezing for real. The trees growing on the hill were completely covered in a thick layer of snow. Their branches weighed down. As if on cue, the wind started picking up, and snow fell from the branches straight onto my shoulders, making it even colder. I finally found the spot where the house had once stood. Only a few bricks remained, stacked on top of each other. My hands were very cold, my fingers barely bending, but I was determined to take at least a few shots of that, so to speak, magical place. So forcing myself, I photographed the area anyway. It was much easier to come down the hill than to go up it. I carefully stepped down the snow-covered slope, leaning on my stick. The snow crunches under my feet, and sometimes under its thick layer there is ice and my feet slip a little. Finally, I made it back to Otto's house. I tapped the snow off my boots at the entrance and took off my snow-covered coat. I quickly approached the stove and pressed my hands to it, feeling the warmth gradually filling my frozen body. My hands, which just 5 minutes ago couldn't even bend from the cold, were now slowly starting to move. My cheeks were burning, my nose turned bright red, and a pulse started thumping in my temples. Unpleasant, but a good sign. It meant my body was coming back to life after the test of the cold. "Frozen?" he asked, entering the room. "And I told you not to go anywhere," he said sternly. "On the contrary, it was good that I went. Now we have a lot of beautiful photos. Get under the blanket and warm up, otherwise you'll catch a cold," he said, then left the room. Due to the sudden change in temperature, I really wanted to sleep, so much so that my eyes began to close on their own. I lay down under the blanket and covered myself with it. I didn't really understand when I fell asleep. Rustling sound in the next room. "I guess they don't want to wake me up," I muttered under my breath. I got up from the bed and stepped out of the room. Under the lantern light, Otto was intensely tinkering with the old tape recorder, turning screws and pressing buttons endlessly. "Well, you're frozen after sleeping the whole day," he said, looking up at me. "I won't even argue," I smiled. "Want some tea?" "I won't refuse. I'd love a hot cup." Otto quickly brewed some fragrant herbal tea, handed me a cup, and we went outside. The night was quiet, but snowy snow was falling non-stop, large and fluffy. I brushed the thick layer of snow off the bench. Otto and I sat down. In the village, there was such a deep evening silence. You won't find this in the city. Only the occasional bark of a dog could be heard somewhere. I closed my eyes for a moment and took a deep breath, so fresh, so cold, with a faint hint of smoke rising from the chimney. It filled my lungs, cleared my head, and at the same time brought a strange feeling of calm. "Yes, even silence here has its own taste," he added. "I can't get the house out of my mind." "Why? Do you know its story? Please tell me." "It's customary to remain silent about it here. No one tells the truth, unfortunately. I only know that it used to be an orphanage." "Did people die there?" I sighed. "And who will really tell the truth? That's it. I'm going to sleep. Tomorrow will be another hard day. Look at all the snow that fell. Work again for the whole day," he said, rising from the bench and letting out a heavy sigh. "I'll stay a little longer. I'm not ready to sleep yet. Good night to you," I said, watching him leave. I sat for a while longer, finishing my now cold, almost icy tea. From time to time, I glanced at my watch, whose hand seemed deliberately to move very slowly. The house lingered in my mind, refusing to let me be at ease.
Every photo I take is empty. I replayed it over and over in my head, trying to find even a slight logical explanation for this phenomenon. It seemed as if someone didn't want me to discover the truth. I could no longer live as if nothing had happened. I needed to find out whether something mystical was hiding on the hill, or if it was just a mirage, a play of light, or some other obvious explanation. I felt curiosity growing inside me, an urge I could no longer contain. I rose from the bench, glanced at Mr. Otto's house, then back at the hill. If not now, then when? I muttered and headed toward the gate. By the gate stood the same stick I had taken with me from the hill earlier in the day. I decided to take it along. Carefully closing the gate, I set off on my so-called adventure in search of the truth. The night was deep. The stars and the moon were my faithful companions, illuminating my path like lanterns. Only when the sky was covered with clouds did I take my phone out of my pocket to light the way, rarely, as I was afraid of draining its battery. The snow creaked under my feet, each step producing a sharp sound that seemed to cut through the silence. As I approached the hill, it felt like the wind was starting to pick up. I paused for a moment, wondering if it might be better to turn back, but no. Since I've come this far, I have to keep going, I told myself. It was almost midnight. That meant I needed to reach nearly the top as quickly as possible. The sound of a blizzard. The higher I climbed, the stronger the blizzard became, and with every step it grew harder to move. My only relief was leaning on the stick I had brought with me. The snow stuck to my face so that I had to squint, and the wind cut my cheeks like a blade. The trees and bushes bent in all directions under the force of the wind, shaking off excess weight in the form of huge layers of snow. I stopped by a massive oak tree, resting one hand on it and the other on my wooden stick. I was exhausted, my legs barely obeyed me, and my hands felt almost frozen. I tried to steady my breathing, but I couldn't take a deep breath in this cold air. I breathed in short, shallow bursts, allowing only small streams of air into my lungs. The choice was gone. I had to keep moving. Only a few meters left, and I would finally reach my goal. If I just push through a little more, I'll make it. For a moment, it seemed like the wind was calming down, but I wasn't sure. Maybe it was only my imagination, or perhaps I simply wanted to believe it with all my heart. I sighed heavily, leaned on my stick, and continued my path. Almost there, I realized I had no strength left to go any further. The blizzard was only growing stronger with each passing second. The whistling and howling in my ears sounded like the cries of hundreds of people. The wind hurled snow straight into my face, so fiercely it almost knocked me off my feet. And there it was before me, the ruins of that old house I had struggled so hard to reach. Finally, I made it, I muttered with relief, forgetting for a moment the unbearable cold that had consumed my whole body. I took a few more steps toward the bricks peeking out from under the thick snow, and suddenly, my right leg gave way and sank into the ground. Ah, it hurts, I shouted, collapsing to my knees in the snow. That's when I realized I had never been in such trouble before. I tried with all my strength to pull my leg free, but nothing worked. Panicking, I began searching my jacket pocket for my phone, but of course, in my frantic state, I couldn't find it. Damn it, damn it, damn it, I screamed, desperately trying to pull myself out of the hole. The clock read 12:36 p.m. If I didn't get out before morning, I would surely freeze to death. Maybe, if I were lucky, they'd at least find my body someday. The thought of dying here only fueled my panic, driving me closer to madness. My leg throbbed with sharp pain, probably a sprain or worse. No matter how I tried, I couldn't pull it out on my own. "Well done, Sean. You've really done it this time," I muttered through clenched teeth, tugging at my leg. My pants were soaked through, the cold gnawed at my bones, and an overwhelming drowsiness crept over me. But from the survival training we had in college, I remembered one thing clearly: you must never fall asleep. I fought to stay awake in every way I could. I even started singing, though I usually hated it. Then, out of the corner of my eye, I noticed a warm flash of light behind me. I carefully turned my head, though even that small movement felt almost impossible. Right before my eyes, on a spot where, apart from the remnants of old bricks poking through a layer of snow, there was absolutely nothing, a real house appeared, so real, as if it had been standing there all along. The wind whistles above my head, swirling the snow in every direction. I squint to try to make out what's happening in the windows, but I see nothing except a huge column of snow spinning before my eyes. I can't get to my feet, and sitting is becoming increasingly difficult. I tried to reach for my camera, but it flew too far away when I fell, and I don't notice the wooden stick nearby either. This house looks so real that I can't believe that just a few minutes ago, there was absolutely nothing here, just a few old bricks, and now, right before my eyes, a full-fledged house has appeared. I try in any way I can to reach it, to touch it, to check with my own eyes and senses that it's real and not just a mirage, but my leg won't obey, and with every attempt to stretch it, the pain grows stronger and stronger. I finally fumbled for my phone, which was in my pocket, now with the shattered screen where nothing is visible, meaning I can't call for help, and what's more, I don't even know what time it is. But if Otto's words are to be believed that the house only appears around midnight, then it must be roughly that time now. I lay down on my back in the snow. I no longer have the strength to control myself. My leg hurts so much that it seems to radiate all the way to my back. I try not to close my eyes so I don't fall asleep, even though I feel my eyelids getting heavier with every passing second. Eyes opening. I slowly open my eyes. Somewhere in the background, I could hear the faint murmur of children. Turning my head to the side, I realized that I was inside a house. Outside the window, the night was deep and dark. In the corner by the window, a fireplace was burning. Logs crackling within, and the flickering silhouettes of the flames danced on the surrounding walls like a performance. I shifted my gaze down to my legs. I was covered with a brightly colored plaid blanket. The sensation felt strange. Just before I closed my eyes, my clothes had been soaked through, and the cold had pierced right to the bone. Now, however, they were dry, and I felt surprisingly warm, which meant I hadn't been here for just a few minutes. Pain pulsed in my temples, and my legs still hurt, though not as badly as before. Fear gripped my chest, and my heart raced like it had gone mad, my pulse even palpable in my heels. I tried to get up, but nothing worked. My vision darkened sharply. I lay back to avoid making things worse. My body felt impossibly heavy, as if every muscle refused to obey me. I sighed. Now I tried to focus on restoring my breathing. Deep inhales, slow exhales, repeated several times until it started to ease. I forced myself to pull it together and calm down. I needed to understand where I was, what was happening, and why I was here. My heart gradually slowed its pace, but my mind remained alert. "It's okay, I'm alive. Everything else doesn't matter right now," I muttered. "Is there someone here?" I shouted several times. Suddenly, quiet, calm Cautious footsteps sounded near the door, almost imperceptible. Someone approached the door but didn't dare to enter the room. "I can hear you there," I called out. The doorknob slowly turned. The door creaked open. A woman stepped into the room. Her face was weary, her eyes filled with both fatigue and anxiety. She froze immediately upon crossing the threshold, as if hesitating whether to take another step. "Who are you?" I asked, alarmed. "You better tell me what you're doing here on the hill, in a blizzard like this," she asked in a cold voice. "I'm tired of living." "No, of course not. I wanted to find out why the house appears on the hill that everyone sees at midnight. You know what I mean, right?" "You're inside the house right now." I couldn't believe my ears. A chill ran down my spine, sending goosebumps across my skin, and fear lodged in my throat like a heavy stone. For a moment, it felt as if I might lose consciousness from what I had just heard. "But how is that possible?" I muttered, unable to trust what I had just heard. The woman silently gave me a look that mixed sorrow and despair with a desire to share, as if she had long been waiting for someone to ask her that question. She slowly approached the chair near me and sat down. "This house is unusual. Call it what you will, an illusion, a ghost, the supernatural, and in every name, there is a kernel of truth." "Excuse me, but who are you? What's your name?" I asked, slightly straightening and leaning against the wall. "I'm Debbie, a caretaker in this house." "I'm Sean, a journalist from the city. I came to make a report about this village to help, to draw attention to their suffering and to save the villagers, and through my own recklessness, I ended up here." "You're doing a good thing," she said softly. I tried. "Thank you. Tell me the story of this house. Why does no one know it for sure?" "This house, these children, it was all my life. Here, the laughter of children never stopped. I loved every child as if they were my own," she began slowly, recalling every detail. "And what happened?" "We never asked for help from patrons or the authorities. We always managed on our own. Someone would give us chicks, we raised them and had eggs. Someone donated a goat, we had milk. Together with the children, we planted gardens, harvested crops, cooked soups, made bread, stored supplies for winter. But one day, everything changed." "Go on," I whispered. "One day, wealthy people became interested in this land. They came and offered to split the children among different orphanages, and they offered me money. Of course, I refused. People stood up for us. They said they would never allow anything to be built here. Some time passed, and it seemed as if everything had quieted down, but no." She paused, as if sinking into her memories of that difficult day. I watched her face, tears were in her eyes, but she was no longer crying. "On one icy January night, someone set the house on fire. Just like that. I still don't know who did it, but I understand why. We woke up to the smell of smoke. The children's screams tore through the silence. Everyone rushed to the doors, but they were barred. As were the windows." I tried to save at least someone, but nothing worked. Everything burned to the ground, and we went up with the house. "But why didn't it disappear? Why are you still here?" "I suppose we're stuck between worlds." "Between worlds? How is that possible?" "Well, everything was burning. I blamed myself. I screamed. I cried for refusing to give up this land. Maybe then I could have saved the children and myself." I stayed silent, just watching her. Her eyes were empty. There was only an abyss in them, one I wanted to look away from, so as not to drown. She fell silent for a few minutes. Then she began again. Every corridor remembers their cries of boundless joy, as well as the grief and pain they endured that day, their little eyes full of hope for rescue. I will never forget them. I know that every smile, every tear, left a mark on these walls, and that's why we are still here at midnight. "How can I help you?" I asked compassionately. "You already are helping," she whispered almost softly. You're helping this village, just as they once helped our home. If it weren't for its residents, by now some factory or a wealthy person's house would be standing on this hill. They didn't allow anything to be built here, even after the fire, so I am grateful to them and to their descendants for their kindness. I will definitely help them as a sign of your gratitude, I promise. The day after. Doctor, what's the news? She asked, crying. Surprisingly, his condition is stable. After a night spent in the freezing cold, he didn't even get frostbite. Pulse, breathing, everything is normal. When we found him on the hill, even his body temperature was fine. It's as if someone had kept him warm all night. The only issue is a sprained leg, but it's mild. He'll be running in a week. But how is that possible? She asked, astonished. We don't know. Near the spot where he was found, there were no traces of people or even animals, only his own. I don't even know what to say. There's nothing to say here. He was lucky. I've never seen a case like this. Just be grateful to God that he's alive. I agree with you. Excuse me, I still have patients. I have to go, he said, and left the room. Eyes opening. Cardio monitor sound. I opened my eyes. My head didn't feel like my own. It ached, throbbed, and pressed against my temple so hard it was difficult to even think. My vision was blurry. Everything swam before my eyes. I started blinking rapidly, trying to bring my sight back into focus. My leg thankfully didn't hurt, just a faint ache, nothing serious. My body, however, felt foreign to me, heavy, sore, and aching in every inch. Frowning, I tried to remember how I got here. It was hard to recall right away. My memory was fragmented, broken into 1,000 tiny pieces that I now had to piece together like a puzzle. Then Zoe entered the room. I was so glad to see her, though I couldn't help but feel awkward in her presence. What are you talking about? She said, sitting beside me. That my vacation is cancelled again, I muttered with a smile. Sean, you almost died, and here you are, talking about some vacation, she said, taking my hand. I can't really remember what happened. The doctor said that a local resident you stayed with reported you. He got worried when you didn't return and called the police and ambulance to search for you. Although his family took me in, they're such kind people, I said with a sigh. Thanks to their compassion, you're talking to me now. Yes, now I definitely have to help them, I said resolutely. What do you have to do? Finish what I started, the reason I went there in the first place. Can I help you somehow? I think so. Tell me, what do I need to do? Is your friend still working at the archives? I asked with curiosity. Yes, why? You need to find data about the orphanage that used to be in the village of Balkans. Alright, but why do you need it? She asked, intrigued. I'll tell you everything later, okay? Okay, anything else? My camera and recorder were with me. Can you bring them? I'll ask the doctor where they are. Thank you. I lay on the hospital bed. The monitor I was connected to monotonously beeped its beep, beep, beep. In my mind, everything was tangled. I thought about the village, about the promise I made to help, and even more, I thought about the promise I made to Debbie to help the village recover again. I felt that I had to do it, not just as a journalist, but as a person who remained alive thanks to those who are long gone, and thanks to those with good hearts. I turned my gaze to the window. The sky was gray, and the heavy swirling snow still hadn't stopped. Winter continued to show its character. A few days later.
Recovering at home is far better than in a hospital room. I stretched out on the bed and covered myself with a warm blanket. The comfort of home walls heals faster than any hospital. The only drawback is that I broke my camera. Although we managed to recover all the data, I still feel a bit sad that it's broken. I had grown so used to taking photos with it, and I've been through so much with it. I sat at the table. The house was quiet, just me and my thoughts. I opened my laptop. On the desktop was a folder labeled Photos, Balkans inside, photos of the village. For a moment, I realized I missed this place.